Gary Mason.
All that long, considering his age. Oh, over he goes. There's the right, and he's got him. Setter, and Mason beat him to it. And there's a good right, and he's on his way out here, and this is very careful. And
was one of Britain's hardest punching heavyweights with 34 knockouts in 37 victories. He was ranked number 4 in the world and was close at one point to fighting Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield.
Are you serious about wanting to fight Mike Tyson?
Oh yeah, I'm serious. My objective is to fight for the world title. Remember, I've never been beaten, I haven't been knocked out and anything else, regardless of who I fought. So there's no reason to say I shouldn't fight Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson has said he'll be willing to come to Britain in the summer and face the winner of the Lennox Lewis and me fight. And I'm also ranked 4th, and as you know, George Foreman is fighting Evander Holyfield, and Mike Tyson is fighting Razor Ruddock, and all of those 4 are ranked above me, so I'll be the next one.
So you're number 5 in the rating?
I've gone up to number 4 in one of the ratings as well.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Winning the British title.
Punch to the body, the left this time from Mason. And Curry's face now beginning to look very worn, bleeding. He still gives this come-on sign, but he's taken a hard right, and he's going, and he's down.
And only ever losing one fight against the future great Lennox Lewis, and that was for the European title in a really tough fight. And Gary was even knocking out Mike Tyson's former opponents, sometimes just as quickly as Mike Tyson had got the job done. So Gary Mason was actually born in Jamaica, moving to England. He was based around Chatham in Kent.
Unusually, Gary has moved to Kent from Wandsworth.
The reason why I moved out of South London to come down here was 2 reasons. The price of property originally, and then where you grow up, you've got all the people who are going to distract you from what you're doing. And I'm a committed fighter, and I have to have as much concentration as I can, so moving out here was one of the reasons for that.
He turned professional in 1984 with a nice stoppage win over Al Malcolm. Gary had serious strength, big punch power, a lot of heart and courage, and he also had a great chin. A lot of the attributes you need to become a good boxer, even a champion. He worked his way up, winning all his fights by knockout, and he fought a lot of Americans, including Mike Tyson opponents, Tyrell Biggs, Sammy Scaff, Donnie Long, Alfonso Ratcliffe, Eddie Richardson and James Quick Tillis. And Gary stopped all of them, including James Quick Tillis, who had the distinction of being the first person to take Mike Tyson the distance over 10 rounds. Gary stopped Tillis in round 5. Actually, shout out to James Tillis, because we talk on Facebook occasionally, and he's a great guy. So James, I hope you're well. Gary was now in the same stable as Frank Bruno and would regularly spar with Frank Bruno.
It's working for Gary Mason now. Bruno won't fight again until after Christmas. His mum, you'll remember, wanted him to retire altogether.
And inevitably, comparisons were made between Gary Mason and Frank Bruno.
I'm going to be compared to Frank, but I look at Frank as inspiration and everything else, but I don't consider Frank as a rival because we are stablemates and I can't see us ever fighting.
Gary Mason also sparred British heavyweight champion and the Welsh Rocky David Pearce. Gary spoke very highly of David Pearce and said that Pearce really helped Gary get ready for his fights and that he was instrumental in his preparation for certain title fights. Incidentally, I have a video on my channel about David Bomber Pearce, so if anybody's interested, I'll leave a link in the description. Thank you. So Gary won the British title in his 30th fight, stopping Hugh Roy Curry. This was for the vacated belt after Horace Notice had retired. So Gary was winning his fights all by knockout, and then he suffered a detached retina in one of his fights. This eye injury would cause him big problems when he had to go up against Lennox Lewis, an up-and-coming Lennox Lewis, in a fight for the European title.
Mason's fight is a certain seller. British champion versus European. Exotic training sites like New York's Central Park are the reward for 35 successful fights, including some spectacular KOs, like this 1986 win over American Lorenzo Boyd. The crowds love it when he hammers someone like Tyrell Biggs, a famous American.
Now Lewis at that point had had 15 fights. Gary Mason had had 35 fights. So it was a real big step up for Lennox Lewis. So the European heavyweight title fight was in 1991 at Wembley Arena. Gary Mason versus Lennox Lewis. This was actually an eliminator, I think, for the world title as well, which was held by Evander Holyield at that point. Gary put up a very spirited display, fighting hard and showing huge heart and huge courage. Lennox was using the jab and the footwork very effectively, keeping Gary at range and peppering him with that strong jab. And it wasn't long before both of Gary's eyes were closing. He already had a damaged retina, so both of his eyes were closing. He actually said it felt like, when Lennox was jabbing him, it felt like a red hot poker in his eye. And at one point in the fight, Gary was bravely fighting on, almost completely blind with two swollen shut eyes. But he carried on going forward, trying to attack Lennox. And then referee Terry O'Connell, showing compassion, stopped the fight for Gary's safety, and it was the right decision.
Sustain him here. He's taking too much and he's badly hurt. He screwed his face up in pain, and I really do think this is going to have to be brought to an end in a minute. But Mason is having one last desperate go in round 7. He's putting everything into a do-or-die effort. And it's called off. That was the last fling for Gary Mason.
So that was Gary's first loss, and he had a couple of years out, and he boxed twice more. He went over to America and boxed twice more, winning both of those. He then retired with a record, a very impressive record of 38 fights, 37 wins, 34 by knockout. He then went on to do some TV work, presenting, and as a pundit. He did some taxi driving and some security work. I was lucky enough to meet Gary at one of my amateur fights, and he was a lovely bloke. And then sadly, in 2011 in Wallington, South London, Gary was knocked off of his push bike at a junction and died from his injuries. At the funeral, he had a huge turnout, celebrities, boxers, and massive support for him, massive showing of love for Gary. Frank Bruno, Lennox Lewis was there, Lloyd Hunnigan, massive turnout for Gary. One of Gary's friends, Clive Thompson, described Gary as an incredible person, a really good guy, and kind-hearted. He went on to say Gary cared for people, and he would have forgiven the van driver, where a lot of people wouldn't have been able to forgive. So that was Gary Mason, a brilliant fighter. He may be gone, but he's definitely not forgotten. I just wanted to say a big thank you as well to David Kirkwood for some of his fight footage. David's got a great boxing channel, and I'll put a link in the description to David's channel. Please head over there and check out his videos. It's some brilliant stuff if you like boxing. And I just want to say a big thank you to all my subscribers and to everybody who watches the videos. It means the world to me with all your comments, positive comments, and all your likes and your shares as well. Really helps the channel. So yeah, I can't thank you enough. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Let me know how you're doing in the comments section. Let me know what you think of the video as well. All the best. Thank you.